Broadcasting from the House of Celeborn in Lothlorien, Middle-earth, this is the Secret Fire podcast sent to burn at the heart of the world, episode number 42. I'm Michael.
And I'm Micah.
On this episode, we look in the Mirror of Galadriel and experience her magic. What will Sam and Frodo see? How will their visions affect each one? Let's explore that and a whole lot more. We invite you to come along, join the fellowship, become a servant of the Secret Fire right here on the GCT network.
This is your Great Commission transmission.
Micah, my son.
Been a while.
It's been quite a while. Yes, it has. We'll talk more about that near the end of the show. Have a lot to discuss today. This is it. We're going to try and get through the remainder of Chapter 6 of Book 2.
We can do it.
Or is this 7? What chapter is this? Let me take a look here real quick.
That really caught me off
guard. It's been so long. No, this is Chapter 7, yes.
Okay.
And then the next chapter will be 8.
Yep.
Hey, how about that? Do you think we can make it through the end of the chapter here?
I have confidence we can.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and do it. It's been such a while since we have broadcasted that we'll throw the fellowship a bone and just do like a 3-hour podcast.
Here you go, guys.
Yeah.
Well deserved.
So, where we left off last time was on the flat, which housed the home of Celeborn and Galadriel.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a little bit of some drama going on when Celeborn says, "Where's Gandalf?" Okay. Well, Gandalf fell. To what? You know, a Balrog.
Mm-hmm.
A Balrog, as Legolas exclaimed, and Aragorn recounted all that had happened upon the pass of Caradhras and in the days that followed, and he spoke of Balin and his book, and the fight in the chamber of Mazarbul, and the fire, and the narrow bridge, and the coming of the terror, quote, "an evil of the ancient world, it seemed, such as I have never seen before," said Aragorn. It was both a shadow and a flame, strong and terrible. It was a Balrog of Morgoth, said Legolas. Of all Elfbanes, the most deadly, save the one who sits in the Dark Tower. Indeed. Huh. No, this is Gimli. Indeed.
There you go.
I saw upon the bridge that which haunts our darkest dreams. I saw Durin's bane, said Gimli in a low voice, and dread was in his eyes.
Now, I love how all the different races have a different name for it.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I love that Tolkien does.
Yes, everybody's aware, at least in their, well, maybe not, maybe even hobbits, but so, it's deep in their lore or deep in their
hobbits,
memories.
It's more of just, they've heard ancient stories long ago.
There's doom out there.
Yeah.
There are bad things. Alas, said Celeborn, we long have feared that under Caradhras a terror slept, but had I known that the dwarves had stirred up this evil in Moria again, I would have forbidden you to pass the northern borders, you and all that went with you. And if it were possible, one would say that at the last Gandalf fell from wisdom into folly, going needlessly into the net of Moria. He would be rash indeed that said that thing, said Galadriel gravely. Needless were none of the deeds of Gandalf in life. Those that followed him knew not his mind and cannot report his full purpose. But however it may be with the guide, the followers are blameless. Do not repent of your welcome to the dwarf. If our folk had been exiled long and far from Lothlorien, who of the Galadhrim, even Celeborn the Wise, would pass nigh and would not wish to look upon their ancient home, though it had become an abode of dragons? Dark is the water of Kilid Zaram, and cold are the springs of Kibul Nala, and fair were the many-pillared halls of Khazad-dûm in elder days before the fall of mighty kings beneath the stone. She looked upon Gimli, who sat glowering and sad, and she smiled. And the dwarf hearing the names given in his own ancient tongue, looked up and met her eyes. And it seemed to him that he looked suddenly into the heart of an enemy and saw there love and understanding. That's absolutely beautiful.
It is.
That's how the world should work. Okay? In a perfect world, this is how things should work. He believes that he's under attack, right? Because Celeborn, and he's gonna apologize here in just a moment, but this thing is so bad what the dwarves did in Khazad Dûm that you would not have been allowed in here. And Galadriel turns it back on him. Listen, how can you blame him for wanting to see his ancient home, the home of his people?
And it's beautiful, and I'm going to use his language and relate to him.
Relate. That is offering the olive branch, right? And Gimli looked up and met her eyes, and it seemed to him that he looked suddenly into the heart of an enemy and saw their love and understanding. Wonder came into his face, and then he smiled in answer. He rose clumsily and bowed in dwarf fashion, saying, "Yet more fair is the living land of Lorien, and the Lady Galadriel is above all the jewels that lie beneath the earth." Here begins that, and it was completely left out of the movies. I mean, it's a little bit in the extended
character arc, yes.
Yeah, it's a little bit in the extended edition, a little bit, especially when we get to the next chapter. But this is the beginning of a, for lack of better terms, this is a love affair. You know, a warm, tender feelings between a dwarf and an elf, and the noble Gimli and the fair lady of the wood.
And not necessarily in a romantic sense.
No. Warm feelings, tender feelings. Admiration, all of those adjectives.
Mutual respect.
Yes. And when it says he rose clumsily and bowed in dwarf, I can see him, you know. There was a silence at length. Hey, you know what? Wait, that's where we left off, basically. I forgot to do this. Are you ready to go on an adventure?
Oh, yep.
Oh, okay, here we go.
Remember what Bilbo used to say? It's a dangerous business,
Frodo, going out your door, you step onto the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to.
That's the proper way to do that.
Yeah, imagine if we tried to go on an adventure without Bilbo's pep talk.
Without that, that's like a blessing.
Yeah.
Okay. You are ready to go now. He rose clumsily and bowed in dwarf fashion, saying, "Yet more fair is the living land of Lorien, and the Lady Galadriel is above all the jewels that lie beneath the earth." They love jewels that lie beneath the earth. Okay, that's what dwarves live for. But she's more fair. There was a silence. At length, Celeborn spoke again. "I did not know that your plight was so evil," he said. "Let Gimli forget my harsh words. I spoke in the trouble of my heart." There we go, Micah. We can tie what we said about Galadriel and her reaching out the olive branch, and that's how we should behave. And here is Celeborn now giving the reason for why he behaved so harshly and apologizing for it. This is how people should behave. I mean, I try and I fail because it's hard.
It's really telling how you can see that though you might like instantly judge Celeborn because of how he acted, then he explains himself.
Yes.
You know, and instead of Gimli immediately jumping on him, you know, and then there being a big, you know, constant misunderstanding.
Celeborn right here is saying, I did not have all the information. Okay. I didn't realize. Wow, this is bad. So he said, let Gimli forget my harsh words I spoke in the trouble of my heart. I will do what I can to aid you, each according to his wish and need. Those are big words. He's not just saying, oh, forgive me. No. Forgive me, and I'm going to make it up to you in whatever way that I can. I will do what I can to aid you, each according to his wish and need, but especially that one of the little folk who bears the burden. Your quest is known to us, said Galadriel, looking at Frodo, but we will not here speak of it more openly. Yet not in vain will it prove, maybe, that you came to this land seeking aid, as Gandalf himself plainly purposed. For the Lord of the Galathrim is accounted the wisest of the elves of Middle-earth, and a giver of gifts beyond the power of kings. Here she is again, the graciousness. Micah, we need to learn grace from this elven queen. She says that Celeborn is among the wisest of all elves, but yet she gently corrected him. Isn't that neat? She didn't turn to him and say, you ding-dong.
Yeah.
You know? Pipe down. Settle down there. Right? No. This is just written so beautifully and so perfectly, and it is such again, an example of how, especially us who are believers, should always strive to behave. And I'm speaking to myself more than anybody else. Clear my throat. He has dwelt in the West since the days of dawn, and I have dwelt with him years uncounted. For ere the fall of Nargothrond or Gondolin, I passed over the mountains, and together through ages of the world we have fought the long defeat. Boy, there's a lot jam-packed into there. I'm afraid we're not going to get through the end of this chapter.
Well, the thing is, with Tolkien's work, you can stop at every sentence.
Yes.
So.
And I want to stop and smell the roses,
and
man.
sometimes we do just have to, say, man,
Give it back
that's
to
a
the
jewel
readers.
right
Yes.
there. But
give it back to the readers to dwell on, to meditate on.
Yeah.
Okay. It was who first summoned the White Council. And if my designs had not gone amiss, it would have been governed by Gandalf the Grey, and then mayhap things would have gone otherwise. Here we are, we're back to Gandalf now. We talked about Gandalf last episode, and the effect and the role that he plays and the sacrifice that he made, and he is still working. I mean, we'll get more to that a little bit more, but Galadriel assembled the White Council. She wanted Gandalf the Grey to be the head.
naturally.
Instead of Saruman. But even now there is hope left. I will not give you counsel saying do this or do that, for not in doing or contriving, nor in choosing between this course or another can I avail, but only in knowing what was and is, and in part also what shall be. But this I will say to you, your quest stands upon the edge of a knife. Stray but a little, and it will fail, to the ruin of all. Remember that, everybody, because I'm going to recall this later on in the episode. But I will say this to you, your quest stands upon the edge of a knife. Stray but a little, and it will fail, to the ruin of all. Yet hope remains, while all the company is true. And with that word, she held them with her eyes, and in silence looked searchingly at each of them in turn. None save Legolas and Aragorn could long endure her glance. Sam quickly blushed and hung his head. At length the Lady Galadriel released them from her eyes, and she smiled. "Do not let your hearts be troubled," she said. "Tonight you shall sleep in peace. Then they sighed and felt suddenly weary, as those who have been questioned long and deeply, though no words had been spoken openly. "Go now," said Celeborn. "You are worn with sorrow and much toil. Even if your quest did not concern us closely, you should have refuge in this city until you were healed and refreshed. Now you shall rest, and we will not speak of your further road for a while." This is a theme that we have seen at least one other time so far, Micah. And I'm thinking of the House of Tom Bombadil, where we spoke long on the concept of rest and refreshment. This is another example where they are. I mean, this is like a Sabbath rest. So, for our Christian listeners out there, you can tie this little nugget into the Sabbath rest that we have in Christ Jesus. I love how he goes. Celeborn's awesome because he goes from what? "If I had known you would not even be allowed here," to being corrected gently by Galadriel, to him admitting, "I'm sorry, I didn't, please forgive me. I didn't realize how dangerous your quest was, and I will do everything that I can for each one of you, anything that I can do." And then now he is saying, even if your quest didn't concern us, you would have refuge in this city until you were healed and refreshed. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
And these are things that you have to stop, and you have to smell these roses as you're reading Tolkien. It's so unlike most.
Any.
Yeah. So
not any, but
now you shall rest, and we will not speak of your further road for a while. Do you want to pick up from here?
Yeah.
Okay.
That night the company slept on the ground, much to the satisfaction of the hobbits. The elves spread for them a pavilion among the trees near the fountain, and in it they laid soft couches. Then, speaking words of peace with fair elvish voices, they left them. For a while the travelers talked of their night before in the treetops, and of their day's journey. And the Lord and the Lady, for they had not yet the heart to look much further back. And I apologize if you can hear my pages rustling.
No,
I have an actual book.
That is part of the aesthetic of the Secret Fire podcast.
Yeah, I like to think so.
Yes.
"What did you blush for, Sam?" said Pippin. "You broke down. Anyone would have thought you had a guilty conscience. I hope it was nothing worse than a wicked plot to steal one of my blankets."
That's a hobbit for you.
It sure is. "I never thought of no such thing," answered Sam, in no mood for jest. "If you want to know, I felt as if I had nothing on, and I," turning the page, "didn't like it. She seemed to be looking inside me and asking me what I would do if she gave me a chance of flying back home to the Shire, to a nice little hole with a bit of garden of my own."
And this also we will recall later on in the show.
Yeah, and I like this part where he says a nice little hole with, and then it's whatever a dash, and then with a nice little garden of my own. I like to think that he's thinking of
Rose.
Yeah,
Rosie. Yes.
I've always taken it that way.
Yes.
"That's funny," said Mary. "Almost exactly what I felt myself. Only, well, I don't think I'll say any more," he ended lamely. All of them, it seemed, had fared alike. Each had felt that he was offered a choice between shadow, full of fear that lay ahead, and something that he greatly desired. Clear before his mind it lay, and to get it he had only to turn aside from the road and leave the quest and the war against Sauron to the others. "And it seemed to me too," said "And it seemed to me too," said Gimli, "that my choice would remain secret and only known to myself." "To me it seemed strange, exceedingly strange," said Boromir. "Maybe it was only a test, and she thought to read our thoughts for her own good purpose. But almost I should have said that she was tempting us, and offering what she pretended to have the power to give.
See, this is... I really, really, really want to like Boromir.
Mm-hmm.
But what he is talking about here, I do not like at all.
Well, again, I feel like we've definitely covered this before, but you have to look at the cultures. And the cultures of man is that anything unknown, mysterious, or ancient is something to be feared. Because they are actively fighting Sauron. They're really the only ones that are actively opposing the Dark Lord.
No, I mean, that's point well made.
He uses, all kinds of dark crafts and stuff. So, but the men don't. They don't have that power, or they haven't, studied it, whatever it may be. So,
well, it's just sad to me that he is so suspicious.
Gruff and...
Well, he's suspicious. He has no trust for these people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sad. It's to his loss, really. So, when he says, to me it seemed exceedingly strange, maybe it was only a test and she thought to read our minds, or thought to read our thoughts for her own good purpose. That's like she's being duplicitous, right?
Mm-hmm.
But almost I should have said that she was tempting us and offering what she pretended to have the power to give. That's a dead giveaway about what her little conversation in his mind was.
Yeah.
That is a...
And I personally think at this point, Boromir's desire for the ring is really taking hold, and whatever conversation they had in his head involved the ring, and that instantly made him, turn away from her.
And now he has a guilty conscience.
Yeah.
There's just a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
It need not be said that I refuse to listen. The men of Minas Tirith are true to their word. But what he thought that the lady had offered him, Boromir did not tell. And as for Frodo, he would not speak, though Boromir pressed him with questions. She held you long in her gaze, ring-bearer, he said. Yes, said Frodo. But whatever came into my mind, then I will keep there. Well, have a care, said Boromir. I do not feel too sure of this elvish lady and her purposes.
See, right there, that's, to me, it instantly says, because he turns to Frodo, who has the ring. He's like, what did she talk to you about, huh?
Yeah.
Well, take care. Don't,
You have what I want.
Yeah.
I know what she talked to me about. What'd she talk to you about?
Yeah.
Well, and to be fair, you have what I want in order to help my people, okay?
Yeah.
So let's be
and
fair.
That's certainly his initial
That is
desire.
his motivation.
Yes.
Okay. He wants that ring and he wants to take it back to Dad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because his dad is the wisest of all men as far as Boromir is concerned. Okay, he is a faithful, strong warrior leader of the people. So I want to make sure that listeners know that I am clear on that. Boromir wants the ring not for himself, but for his people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But, hey, it'll lead to folly. But, we all know what happens, and so we won't say it here. We'll talk about that when we get to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Okay. Speak no evil of the Lady Galadriel, said Aragorn sternly. You don't want Aragorn speaking to you sternly. You know not what you say. There is in her and in this land no evil, unless a man bring it hither himself. Then let him beware. But tonight I shall sleep without fear for the first time since I left Rivendell. And may I sleep deep and forget for a while my grief. I am weary in body and in heart. He cast himself down upon his couch and fell at once into a long sleep. The others soon did the same, and no sound or dream disturbed their slumber. When they woke, they found that the light of day was broad upon the lawn before the pavilion, and the fountain rose and fell glittering in the sun. I have that fountain at my personal house.
Oh, do you?
Yes, in Lotro. more on that later. They remained some days in Lothlorien, so far as they could tell or remember. All the while that they dwelt there, the sun shone clear, save for a gentle rain that fell at times and passed away, leaving all things fresh and clean. Makes me think of the rains that we get here in southern Middle Tennessee, and you go out afterwards, it just smells fantastic. And the air was cool and soft, as if it were early spring, yet they felt about them the deep and thoughtful quiet of winter. It seemed to them that they did little but eat and drink and rest and walk among the trees, and it was enough. That goes back to that thought of Sabbath and rest, the rest that Celeborn freely offered them. You stay here as long as it takes, whatever you need. You're going to eat, you're going to drink, you're going to rest, you are going to forget your cares of the world. They had not seen the Lord and Lady again, and they had little speech with the elven folk, for few of these knew or would use the Western tongue. How? we don't want to speak that language. Yeah. Haldir had bidden them farewell and gone back again to the fences of the north, where great watch was now kept since the tiding of Moria that the company had brought. Legolas was away much among the Galadhrim, and after the first night he did not sleep with the other companions, though he returned to eat and talk with them. Then here we go. Often he took Gimli with him when he went abroad in the land, and the others wondered about this change. I wonder what precipitated this change. Oh, did you move to another location there?
No, it just kind of froze up.
Was this a long time coming, or was this something that that happened between them because of the exchange between Gimli and Galadriel?
Oh, you mean you think that Legolas maybe witnessed the respect that Gimli showed, and he was like, "Whoa, okay, well."
Oh, maybe he's not. Maybe I was wrong about dwarves.
Yeah.
I think Galadriel taught a whole lot of people a whole lot of things in a very short amount of time.
Just by one exchange. And that's really how it can go in life. Sometimes you see someone, act respectfully, and you're like, well, maybe I've been acting like a fool then.
Yeah.
But before we continue on, I want to discuss something that is kind of an open-ended thing that I'd like the listeners' thoughts on. And that's the relationship between dwarves and elves in Tolkien's work.
Perfect.
Now, I've always been the one that thinks, just by default, the dwarves and elves, they don't have a great relationship, across the board. But I was thinking lately, like, where's the root of that?
Now we know that at the western gate of Moria, that's the one that you go in, right? You go in the western. Yeah, and you come out the eastern gate. At the western gate, that was an elven road.
Yeah,
that ran there.
And they had trade and whatever, much like the Dalemen and the dwarves of Erebor.
I mean, it said "Speak, friend, and enter" in Elvish,
and that was made by Celebrimbor or whatever.
Yes.
The runesmith or whatever. So you can see relationships going well between dwarves and elves, but then what I think, it's my opinion now that there is no actual feud between dwarves and elves across the board. Rather, there's a feud specifically between the dwarves of Khazad-dûm and the elves of Lothlorien because of what the dwarves uncovered, the Balrog, of course, and then the Balrog, I can't remember exactly what happened. I think the Balrog, killed some elves or forced some elves to flee.
It's been...
I couldn't actually...
I was going through the Silmarillion, and I put it down, a month or two ago because I've been reading some other things as well. But I would venture to say that this was wholly manufactured by either Morgoth or Sauron.
Yeah.
That he pitted the people against each other.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Without without their knowledge, really. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just he just
But regardless, it was a bad day for everyone.
yes,
Bad day for the
yes.
dwarves and bad day for the elves. But the elves survived, and then they saw what had happened, and then they had disdain for the dwarves of Khazad-dûm.
Yeah,
And that's why we see the disdain right off the bat from, Gimli going into Lothlorien, because he knows these elves are judgmental to him. And another feud that we see is the feud in the Council of Elrond, where Gloin says, "You were less tender to me," said Gloin, with a flash in his eyes of old memories that were stirred in his imprisonment in the deep places of the Elven King's halls, which was in The Hobbit when
yes.
the 14 dwarves...
And Legolas's dad.
14 dwarves?
No, 13 dwarves
13 and a Hobbit,
and
yeah, okay.
Hobbit made the 14th.
When they were imprisoned. And so these two instances I feel are very specific. And listeners, if you have any more examples, please tell me. The only one that I could find from ancient times is in Nargothrond, when what's his face? Thingol had that trade with some dwarves, and they felt they cheated him or something. I have a whole text here, but I don't want to actually...
Or he cheated them, or...
Yeah, there was some cheating going on.
Okay.
And they actually attacked each other, and Thingol was killed.
Well, that'll start a feud.
That was the only... I mean, again, I have the text here, but I don't want to go too deep into that because we need to continue on. But just I thought I'd bring that
Throw
up.
that out.
Yeah.
And get some feedback from our listeners
If you
out
disagree
there.
with me and think that there is a feud between all dwarves and all elves, then...
Or perhaps you'll just go ahead and send us, well, here you go, from the text, from the Legendarium. This is where it began.
Please send me that because I want to look at that.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to me.
Okie doke, good deal. Now, as the companions sat or walked together, they spoke of Gandalf. And all that each had known and seen of him came clear before their minds. As they were healed of hurt and weariness of body, the grief of their loss grew more keen. Often they heard nearby elvish voices singing and knew that they were making songs of lamentation for his fall, for they caught his name among the sweet, sad words that they could not understand. Mithrandir, Mithrandir, sang the elves, O pilgrim gray, for so they loved to call him. But if Legolas was with the company, he would not interpret the songs for them, saying that he had not the skill and that for him the grief was still too near, a matter for tears and not yet for song. Oh, I love that. So there is a time for song, but it follows the time of tears.
And stages of grief,
Yes, mourn, and then memorialize, the events or the story.
Yeah, what are
or
the stages of grief?
The 5 stages?
It's like first it's denial.
Then anger, anyway, we're not... Hey, come on, we got to get through this chapter.
Sorry, gosh.
It was Frodo who first put something of his sorrow into halting words. He was seldom moved to make song or rhyme. Even in Rivendell, he had listened and had not sung himself, though his memory was stored with many things that others had made before him. Oh, I want to talk about that.
Hey, what? Let me remind you what you just said 10 seconds ago.
I know, but that was for you.
Oh, I see.
But now, as he sat beside the fountain in Lorien and heard about him the voices of the elves, his thought took shape in a song that seemed fair to him. Yet when he tried to repeat it to Sam, only snatches remained, faded as a handful of withered leaves. When evening in the Shire was gray, his footsteps on the hills were heard. Before the dawn he went away, on journey long, without a word. From Wilderland to western shore, from northern waste to southern hill, through dragon lair and hidden door in darkling woods he walked at will. With dwarf and hobbit, elves and men, with mortal and immortal folk, With birds on boughs and beasts in den, in their own secret tongues he spoke. A deadly sword, a healing hand, a back that bent beneath its load, a trumpet voice, a burning brand, a weary pilgrim on the road. A lord of wisdom throned he sat, swift in anger, quick to laugh, an old man in a battered hat who leaned upon a thorny staff. He stood upon the bridge alone, and fire and shadow both defied. His staff was broken on the stone, in Khazad-dûm his wisdom died. Now, I could have gone through this line by line and compared it to Jesus Christ. I'll leave that for the listeners to do. Why, you'll be beating Mr. Bilbo next, said Sam. No, I'm afraid not, said Frodo. But that's the best that I can do yet. Well, Mr. Frodo, if you do have another go, I hope you'll say a word about his fireworks, said Sam. Something like this. The finest rockets ever seen, they burst in stars of blue and green, or after thunder golden showers came falling like a rain of flowers. Though that doesn't do them justice by a long road. No, I'll leave that to you, Sam. Or perhaps to Bilbo. But, well, I can't talk of it anymore. I can't bear to think of bringing the news to him. That's touching. One evening, Frodo and Sam were walking together in the cool twilight. Both of them felt restless again. On Frodo, suddenly, the shadow of parting had fallen. He knew somehow that the time was very near when he must leave Lothlorien. What do you think of elves now, Sam? He said. I asked you the same question once before. It seems a very long while ago, but you have seen more of them since then. I have indeed, said Sam. And I reckon there's elves and elves. They're all elvish enough, but they're not all the same. Now, these folks aren't wanderers or homeless and seem a bit nearer to the likes of us. They seem to belong here, more even than hobbits do in the Shire. Whether they've made the land or the land's made them, it's hard to say. If you take my meaning. It's wonderfully quiet here. Nothing seems to be going on, and nobody seems to want it to. If there's any magic about, it's right down deep, where I can't lay my hands on it, in a manner of speaking. You can see and feel it everywhere, said Frodo. Well, said Sam, you can't see nobody working it. No fireworks like poor old Gandalf used to show. I wonder we don't see nothing of the Lord and Lady in all these days. I fancy now that she could do some wonderful things, if she had a mind. I'd dearly love to see some elf magic, Mr. Frodo. I wouldn't, said Frodo. I'm content, and I don't miss Gandalf's fireworks, but his bushy eyebrows and his quick temper and his voice. You're right, said Sam, and I don't think I'm finding fault. I've often wanted to see a bit of magic like what it tells in old tales, but I've never heard of a better land than this. It's like being at home and on a holiday at the same time, if you understand me. That ties in well with what we were talking about Lothlorien as a temple.
What Sam said, you mean?
Yeah. This is, and the rest that they're getting here, just the magic of the land. I've never heard of a better land than this. It's like being at home and on a holiday at the same time, if you understand me, and it really is, just reminds me of descriptions of the church and the Sabbath rest that we have in Christ. I don't want to leave. All the same, I'm beginning to feel that if we've got to go on, then we best get it over. It's the job that's never started as takes the longest to finish, as my old gaffer used to say. And I don't reckon that these folks can do much more to help us, magic or no. It's when we leave this land that we shall miss Gandalf worse, I'm thinking. I'm afraid that's only too true, Sam, said Frodo. Yet I hope very much that before we leave, we shall see the Lady of the Elves again. Even as he spoke, they saw, as if she came in answer to their words, the Lady Galadriel approaching. Tall and white and fair she walked beneath the trees. She spoke no word, but beckoned to them. You want to take over?
Sure. Turning aside, she led them towards the southern slopes of the hill of Carasgalathon. How would you say that?
Just like you did?
Okay. And passing through a high green hedge, they came into an enclosed garden. No trees grew there, and it lay open to the sky. The evening star had risen and was shining with white fire above the western woods. Down a long flight of steps, the lady went into a deep green hollow, through which ran murmuring the silver stream that issued from the fountain on the hill. At the bottom, upon a low pedestal, carved like a branching tree, stood a basin of silver, wide and shallow, and beside it stood a silver ewer. With water from the stream, Galadriel filled the basin to the brim and breathed upon it. And when the water was still again, she spoke. "Here is the Mirror of Galadriel," she said. "I have brought you here so that you may look into it, if you will." The air was very still, and the dell was dark, and the elf lady beside him was pale and tall. "What shall we look for, and what shall we see?" asked Frodo, filled with awe. "Many things I can command the mirror to reveal," she answered. And to some I can show what they desire to see. But the mirror will also show things unbidden, and those that are often stranger and more profitable than things that we wish to behold. What you see, if you leave the mirror free to work, I cannot tell. For it shows things that were and things that are, and things that yet may be. But which it is that he sees, even the wisest cannot tell. Do you wish to look? Hang on, my computer's blacking out for some reason.
And Frodo did not answer.
"And you?" she said, turning to Sam. "For this is what your folk would call magic, I believe, though I do not understand clearly what they mean. And they seem to use the word of the deceits of the enemy."
Yeah, so I love this. I believe this is what your folk would call magic, though I do not understand clearly what they mean. Yeah. I love that. And she says they seem to use the same word of the deceits of the enemy. She doesn't understand the word magic as Sam is intending it, because this is the gift of her people.
Yeah.
You know?
And now put that perspective that Sam has of magic and apply that to Boromir, another culture who, like the hobbits, does not know magic other than,
tricks.
Yeah. The deceits of the enemy.
Deceits, yes.
And, Boromir may see this as the deceits of another enemy.
Oh, well said. Did you not say you wished to see elf magic? I did, said Sam, trembling a little between fear and curiosity. I'll have a peep, lady, if you're willing. And I'd not mind a glimpse of what's going on at home, he said in an aside to Frodo. It seems a terrible long time that I've been away. But there, like it as not, I'll only... but there, like it or not, I'll only see the stars or something that I won't understand. Like as not, said the lady with a gentle laugh. But come, you shall look and see what you may. Do not touch the water. Sam climbed up on the foot of the pedestal and leaned over the basin. The water looked hard and dark. Stars were reflected in it. There's only stars, as I thought, he said. Then he gave a low gasp, for the stars went out. As if a dark veil had been withdrawn, the mirror grew gray. The mirror grew gray and then clear. There was sun shining, and the branches of trees were waving and tossing in the wind. But before Sam could make up his mind what it was that he saw, the light faded. And now he thought he saw Frodo with a pale face lying fast asleep under a great dark cliff. Then he seemed to see himself going along a dim passage and climbing an endless winding stairs. It came to him suddenly that he was looking urgently for something, but what, he did not know.
I wonder what that was.
I wonder. But I love this because he's seeing fearful things now, and this made me think of an incident in Acts chapter 21. Okay, and Paul had already made up his mind that he was going to go to Jerusalem to celebrate the feast. And in Acts chapter 21, verses 10 through 14, I'm reading out of the New King James Version. And as we stayed, Luke writes in Acts here, and as we stayed many days, a certain prophet named Agabus came down from Judea. When he had come to us, he took Paul's belt, bound his own hands and feet, and said, "Thus says the Holy Spirit, so shall the Jews at Jerusalem bind the man who owns this belt and deliver him into the hands of the Gentiles." Now when we heard these things, both we and those from that place pleaded with Paul, not to go up to Jerusalem. Then Paul answered, "What do you mean, weeping and breaking my heart? For I am ready not only to be bound, but also to die at Jerusalem for the name of the Lord Jesus." So when he would not be persuaded, we ceased, saying, "The Lord's will be done." And this is going to tie into something here in just a moment. So believe it or not, I have a method to my madness of bringing that up. But now, this is like Sam is convinced he's going to see things that are happening or just about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to have a reaction to that, right? So like a dream, the visions shifted and went back, and he saw the trees again, but this time they were not so close, and he could see what was going on. They were not waving in the wind. They were falling, crashing to the ground. "Hi!" cried Sam in an outraged voice. "There's that Ted Sandyman cutting down trees as he shouldn't. They didn't ought to be felled. It's that avenue beyond the mill that shades the road to Bywater. I wish I could get at Ted, and I'd fell him." But now Sam noticed that the old mill had vanished, and a large red brick building was being put up where it had stood. Lots of folk were busily at work. There was a tall red chimney nearby. Black smoke seemed to cloud the surface of the mirror. "There's some devilry at work in the Shire," he said. "Elrond knew what he was on about when he wanted to send Mr. Merry back." Then Sam suddenly gave a cry and sprang away. "I can't stay here," he said wildly. "I must go home. They've dug up Bagshot Row, and there's the poor old gaffer going down the hill with his bits and things on a barrow. I must go home." "You cannot go home alone," said the lady. "You did not wish to go home without your master before you looked in the mirror. And yet you knew that evil things might well be happening in the Shire. Remember that the mirror shows many things, and not all have yet come to pass. Some never come to be, unless those that behold the vision turn aside from their path to prevent them. The mirror is dangerous as a guide of deeds." What did she say to the fellowship in the house of Celeborn? "This quest is on a knife's edge. Stray but a little, and you will fail to the detriment of all." And it ties right into this. This is what the lady has been communicating with Sam about. Sam, this is your time to make a decision. The time to be certain, because you're going to have a tough row to hoe, is the saying. But you're seeing things now that are wanting to draw you away from the quest, and they may not be real, but by pursuing them, you can cause it to happen. You could cause it to happen. And it's like these disciples when this prophet comes and makes a terrible prophecy about Paul, and guess what? It happened. Okay, that prophecy came true. It's not like this. The Mirror of Galadriel is not a prophet. It works differently. But when this prophet comes down from Judea and tells Paul, if you go to, this is what the Holy Spirit is saying, if you go to Jerusalem, this is what will happen to you. And everybody begging Paul, don't go, don't go. Well, he had already told them, the chapter before, I'm on my way to Jerusalem. But then when this happens, everybody freaks out. Don't go. And what Paul say? What? You're breaking my heart. I get, because they are so emotional. Paul, we can't let this happen to you. So stop breaking my heart, man. I'm willing to be bound. I'm willing to die in Jerusalem. I need to do this. This is something I need to do. That's what the lady is presenting to Sam here. Sam sat on the ground and put his head in his hands. I wish I had never come here. I don't want to see no more magic, he said, and fell silent. After a moment, he spoke again, thickly, as if struggling with tears. No. I'll go home by the long road with Mr. Frodo, or not at all. He sealed his fate. That's where he says, no, I will go to Jerusalem. I'll be bound. I'll die if I have to. I will go the long road with Jesus. I'll go the long road with Mr. Frodo. Back home, or I won't go at all. But I hope I do get back home someday. If what I've seen turns out true, somebody's gonna catch it hot. Do you now wish to look, Frodo? Said the Lady Galadriel. You did not wish to see elf magic and were content. Do you advise me to look? Asked Frodo. No, she said. I do not counsel you one way or the other. I am not a counselor. You may learn something, and whether what you see be fair or evil, that may be profitable, and yet it may not. Seeing is both good and perilous. Yet I think, Frodo, that you have courage and wisdom enough for the venture, or I would not have brought you here. Do as you will. I will look, said Frodo. And he climbed on the pedestal and bent over the dark water. At once the mirror cleared, and he saw a twilit land. Mountains loomed dark in the distance against a pale sky. A long gray road wound back out of sight. Far away, a figure came slowly down the road, faint and small at first, but growing larger and clearer as it approached. Suddenly, Frodo realized that it reminded him of Gandalf. He almost called aloud the wizard's name, and then he saw that the figure was clothed not in gray, but in white. In a white that shone faintly in the dusk, and in its hand there was a white staff. The head was so bowed that he could see no face, and presently the figure turned aside round a bend in the road and went out of the mirror's view. Doubt came into Frodo's mind. Was this a vision of Gandalf on one of his many lonely journeys long ago? Or was it Saruman? The vision now changed. Brief and small, but very vivid, he caught a glimpse of Bilbo walking restlessly about his room. The table was littered with disordered papers. Rain was beating on the windows. Then there was a pause, and after it, many swift scenes followed that Frodo in some way knew to be parts of a great history in which he had become involved. Don't you love that? He is now acting in history. The history of the ring. The history of the battle between good and evil. this little hobbit, says, I don't know if I want to look in that mirror. And Galadriel says, you don't have to. But I think that you're brave and strong enough to. Galadriel is, I mean, every time that I read about Galadriel, the more I love her. You know, the more you realize what an amazing character that is. And, okay, well, I could go off on a tangent, but I will not. Okay, we're almost done, friends. We're almost done.
This is the
can
show
be
of tangents.
No. Alrighty. The mist cleared, and he saw a sight which he had never seen before, but knew at once: the sea. Darkness fell. The sea rose and raged in a great storm. Then he saw against the sun, sinking blood red into a rack of clouds, the black outline of a tall ship with torn sails riding up out of the west. Then a wide river flowing through a populous city. Then a white forest, or fortress with 7 towers. And then again a ship with black sails, but now it was morning again, and the water rippled with light, and a banner bearing the emblem of a white tree shone in the sun. A smoke as of fire, and battle arose, and again the sun went down in a burning red that faded into a gray mist, and into the mist a small ship passed away. Twinkling with lights, it vanished, and Frodo sighed and prepared to draw away. Okay.
Do you want to break down?
No.
Oh, okay.
However, Tolkien spent so many years on The Lord of the Rings, and we know that he was a niggler. Okay, he would endlessly be changing things and blah, 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 blah. And you can just see that this is one of the last things that he wrote in this story, huh?
Yeah.
Because he put it all together right there.
Yeah.
No spoilers. Anybody,
Okay.
no spoilers, but he just laid out the story. Well, just those glimpses, but they are highlighted points.
Yeah.
And each of them are very, very important. Right? He didn't give, I shouldn't say the story. He gave us pictures of highlights.
And I very much like the one that he saw last.
Yes. And it just now, believe it or not, just now dawned on me what that was.
Yeah, I've always missed it as well because it was talking about ships before, and I know what that is.
Yes.
And then I thought, yeah.
But then this one small ship.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, wow. Oh, this is exciting stuff. This is exciting stuff. That's why I love doing this.
We're almost to the end. We can do this.
Okay. But suddenly the mirror went altogether dark as if a hole had opened. Oh gosh, this is like a black hole in the world of sight. And Frodo looked into emptiness. In the black abyss, there appeared a single eye that slowly grew until it filled nearly all the mirror. So terrible was it that Frodo stood rooted, unable to cry out or to withdraw his gaze. The eye was rimmed with fire, but was itself glazed, yellow as a cat's watchful and intent. And the black slit of its pupil opened on a pit, a window into nothing. Then the eye began to rove, searching this way and that, and Frodo knew with certainty and horror that among the many things that it sought, he himself was one. But he also knew that it could not see him. Not yet. Not unless he willed it. The ring that hung upon its chain about his neck grew heavy. Heavier than a great stone, and his head was dragged downwards. The mirror seemed to be growing hot, and curls of steam were rising from the water. He was slipping forward. "Do not touch the water," said the lady Galadriel softly. The vision faded, and Frodo found that he was looking at the cool stars twinkling in the silver basin. He stepped back, shaking all over, and looked at the lady. "I know what it was that you last saw," she said. for that is also in my mind. Do not be afraid, but do not think that only by singing amid the trees, nor even by the slender arrows of elven bows, is this land of Lothlorien maintained and defended against its enemy. I say to you, Frodo, that even as I speak to you, I perceive the Dark Lord and know his mind, or all of his mind that concerns the elves. And he gropes ever to see me and my thought. But still the door is closed. She lifted up her white arms and spread out her hands towards the east in a gesture of rejection and denial. Arundel, the evening star, most beloved by the elves, shone clear above. So bright was it that the figure of the elven lady cast a dim shadow on the ground. Its rays glanced upon the ring about her finger. It glittered like polished gold overlaid with silver light, and a white stone in it twinkled as if the elven star had come down to rest upon her hand. Frodo gazed at the ring with awe, for suddenly it seemed to him that he understood. Yes, she said, divining his thought. It is not permitted to speak of it, and Elrond could not do so, but it cannot be hidden from the ring-bearer and the one who has seen the eye. Verily it is in the land of Lorien upon the finger of Galadriel that one of the three remains. This is Nenya, the ring of adamant, and I am its keeper. Nenya was made by Celebrimbor somewhere around Second Age 1500 and 1590, along with the two other elven rings, Narya and Vilya. After Celebrimbor discovered that Sauron had forged the One Ring in about 1600 Second Age, he went to Lothlorien to seek the counsel of Galadriel. They were unwilling to destroy the rings, so Galadriel advised Celebrimbor to keep them hidden, unused, and dispersed far from Eregion. Celebrimbor followed this counsel first by giving Nenya to Galadriel. The power of this ring strengthened and beautified the realm of Lothlorien. But it also increased Galadriel's desire for the sea and return to the west. She's had that ring a long time.
Yeah, and where it says, I know what you last saw, because it has been on my mind also.
No, because it's in my mind. Not been on my mind, like thinking about it. For it is in my mind also. Yeah.
But he's looking for her as well. He's looking for all the rings.
Oh, yes.
And I just find that really powerful.
I find it powerful that Galadriel is that powerful.
Mm-hmm.
That she can keep him at bay for now. But Frodo could remain hidden from him unless Frodo willed to be seen at this juncture, at this point. It's just some fascinating stuff. He suspects, but he does not know. Not yet. Do you not see now wherefore your coming is to us as the footsteps of doom? For if you fail, then we are laid bare to the enemy. So listen, this all ties together. This whole entire chapter, from her saying this quest is on the edge of a knife, stray but a little, and you'll fail to the detriment of all, to getting Sam to make that absolute commitment. Sam was committed, but when he sees the Shire and the Gaffer in trouble, okay, that's going to cause him to question. And she had to test him like that. He had to be tested like that. Are you going to go back? You can't go back alone. And if you do, the chances are you're going to cause the failure of this quest. Oh boy, Galadriel knows more than Tolkien will even. We have to really think about it to understand how much she knows. Tolkien put it in there, but you really got to look, right? To all the way to this. Okay, I am holding the dark Lord at bay. I have that power, but my power is diminishing. Oh goodness. Do you not see now wherefore your coming is to us as the footsteps of doom? For if you fail, Frodo, and Frodo, that's his failure is contingent on whether Sam is going to follow through or not, even in the fear of everything that he loves being destroyed. Then we are laid bare to the enemy. Yet if you succeed, then our power is diminished, and Lothlorien will fade, and the tides of time will sweep it away. And that's exactly what happened. We'll learn about that much later. We must depart into the west, or dwindle to a rustic folk of dale and cave, slowly to forget and to be forgotten. We must depart into the west, or this will happen. We will dwindle to a rustic folk of dale and cave, slowly to forget and to be forgotten. Those are the two choices. Depart to the west, or be forgotten. Forget who we are. I mean, so in reality, if we were in Middle-earth, now, whatever age we're in, fourth age or whatever, there could be elves amongst us who do not know that they are elves. Wow. Which is tragic.
Or at least not know their history and their culture.
Right. Forgot everything that they knew.
Yeah.
And were forgotten for who they were, this great people. Frodo bent his head. And what do you wish? He said at last. That what should be, shall be, she answered. The love of the elves for their land and their works is deeper than the deeps of the sea, and their regret is undying and cannot ever wholly be assuaged. Yet they will cast all away. They will cast all away rather than submit to Sauron, for they know him now. Woo! That just goes back into the story with Celebrimbor, and Sauron duped all the elves, and here's some trinkets for you. Yeah. But now they know. For the fate of Lothlorien, you are not answerable, but only for the doings of your own task. Yet I could wish, were it of any avail, that the One Ring had never been wrought or had remained forever lost. You are wise and fearless and fair, Lady Galadriel, said Frodo. I will give you the One Ring if you ask for it. It is too great a matter for me. Galadriel laughed, with a sudden, clear laugh. Wise the Lady Galadriel may be, she said, yet here she has met her match in courtesy. Gently as are you revenged for my testing of your heart at our first meeting. You begin to see with a keen eye. I do not deny that my heart has greatly desired to ask what you offer. For many long years, I had pondered what I might do should the great ring come into my hands, and behold, it was brought within my grasp. The evil that was devised long ago works on in many ways, whether Sauron himself stands or falls. Would not that have been a noble deed to set to the credit of his ring, if I had taken it by force or fear from my guests? And now at last it comes. You will give me the ring freely. In place of the Dark Lord, you will set up a queen. And I shall not be dark, but beautiful and terrible as the morning and the night. Fair as the sea and the sun and the snow upon the mountain. Dreadful as the storm and the lightning. Stronger than the foundations of the earth. All shall love me and despair. She lifted up her hand, from the ring that she wore there issued a great light that illumined her alone and left all else dark. She stood before Frodo, seeming now tall beyond measurement, and beautiful beyond enduring, terrible and worshipful. Then she let her hand fall, and the light faded, and suddenly she laughed again, and lo, she was shrunken, a slender elf woman, clad in simple white, whose gentle voice was soft and sad. "I passed the test," she said. "I will diminish and go into the west and remain Galadriel." Do you have any comments on that?
I mean, we could pull up many, but we're
almost done. Okay. Extra special long episode of Secret Fire Podcast for you, dear listeners. You're going to be looking at about an hour and a half of show. They stood for a long while in silence. At length, the lady spoke again. "Let us return," she said. "In the morning you must depart. For now we have chosen, and the tides of fate are flowing." Look at that. For now we have chosen. We. Galadriel, Frodo, Sam. We have chosen, and the tides of fate are flowing. This was such a pivotal part of the book. But what isn't?
Exactly.
But really, Micah, you have to admit.
No, it is. There are a few chapters. A lot of them seem to have to do with very wise elves, but that seemed to just pivot the entire story. But
yeah. "I would ask one thing before we go," said Frodo. "A thing which I often meant to ask Gandalf in Rivendell. I am permitted to wear the one ring. Why cannot I see all the others and know the thoughts of those that wear them?" "You have not tried," she said. "Only thrice have you set the ring upon your finger since you knew what you possessed." How'd you know that? "Do not try. It would destroy you. Did not Gandalf tell you that the rings give power according to the measure of each possessor? Before you could use that power, you would need to become far stronger and to train your will to the domination of others. You can't dominate others if you don't want to. You can't use the ring because it's not in your heart to dominate others."
that's awesome.
Isn't it? It's like I always say, when I see all these wild scams of people that are able to do all these tricky things to rob people out of money, I'm like, how did you even figure out how to do that? Well, it's because it's not in my heart to do it. If it was, and I'd figure out how to do it, but I'm too dumb.
Yeah. Well, not yet. Hey, don't place that "I'm too dumb" there at the end.
I would prefer, that I'm too good, but I'm not smart enough to do bad things.
Yeah,
and that's what she's saying.
It requires being smart to do bad things.
You don't have it in. You don't have it in you, Frodo. You can't. You can't do it. Yet even so, as ring bearer, and as one that has borne it on finger and seen that which is hidden, your sight is grown keener. You have perceived my thought more clearly than many that are accounted wise. You saw the eye of him that holds the 7 and the 9. And did you not see and recognize the ring upon my finger? Did you see my ring? She asked, turning again to Sam. No, lady, he answered. To tell you the truth, I wondered what you were talking about. I saw a star through your fingers, but if you'll pardon my speaking out, I think my master was right. I wish you'd take his ring. You'd put things to right. You'd stop them digging up the gaffer and turning him adrift. You'd make some folk pay for their dirty work. I would, she said. That is how it would begin. But it would not stop with that, alas. We will not speak more of it. Let's go.
You need say no more. We'd best get a move on. There are still goblins about.
Oh, bother. More mountains?
No, don't you see? The sun is setting in the west, behind the mountains. We're on the other side, to the edge of the land beyond.
One thing that I want to add to what I was talking about earlier about Sam and about the decision that he had to make. Listen, and tying that into Paul. Hey, if you go, bad things are going to happen. Well, I got to go. I have to do this thing anyway. And so, and the Lady Galadriel is able to get Sam away from where he instantly was drawn. He was instantly drawn away from the quest. I mean, he was done. I got to go back home. I mean, that was a definitive statement. That wasn't a longing or a desire or a wish. To me, I read that as a statement. I have to go back home. Now. I'm leaving now. No. Remember. Okay, it ties into, if you folks remember, the parable of the two sons in Matthew chapter 21. Now remember, Jesus is now in Jerusalem. So back in chapter 20, he told, he was leaving Jericho, and in verse 17, as Jesus was about to go up to Jerusalem, and I'm reading this out of the NASB, New American Standard Bible, as Jesus was about to go up to Jerusalem, okay, he took the 12 disciples aside by themselves, and on the way he said to them, "Behold, we are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be delivered to the chief priests and the scribes, and they will condemn him to death, and will hand him over to the Gentiles to mock and scourge and crucify him, and on the third day he will be raised up." This is the journey. He's coming from Jericho, and it's about a 25-mile journey, but through going up hills and windy roads, and so who knows how long that takes. It would take me about a month. But anyway, then we get down to the triumphal entry, chapter 21, verse 1, when he comes in and everybody say to the daughters of Zion, "Behold, your king is coming to you, gentle and mounted on a donkey, even on a colt, the foal of the beast of burden," right? And people are shouting out, "Hosanna. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest, the Son of David," all these things. And then he goes into the temple and he cleanses the temple. And then you have the going down here to verse 23, when he entered the temple a second time, or third, whatever. He entered the temple. The chief priests and the elders of the people came to him while he was teaching and said, "By what authority are you doing these things? And who gave you this authority?" Then Jesus asked them, "Well, let me ask you a question." They didn't answer him, and he says, "Okay, well, I'm not going to answer, your question." He says, "But what do you think?" Verse 28. "A man had 2 sons, and he came to the first, and he said, 'Son, go work today in the vineyard.' And he, the son, answered, 'I will not.' But afterwards he regretted it and went. The man came to the second son and said the same thing, and he answered, 'I will, sir.' But he did not go." Jesus asked, "Which of the 2 did the will of his father?" They said, "The first." The first son said, "No, I'm not going to go out," and then regretted it and go, "Okay, I'm going to go out." And Jesus said to them, "Truly I say to you, the tax collectors and the prostitutes will get into the kingdom of God before you." Okay, and so he's making a point here, but here's how I tie it into this story. Sam, okay, yes, he's been on this journey, and Gandalf told him, "Don't you leave his side," and we've read all of those things and stuff, but Sam has never been confronted with exactly how bad it is. Okay, he's gone through a lot of inconvenience. Okay, and now, yes, the Balrog was more than an inconvenience, right? But those are things that he faced and experienced that are not on the level of his love for his gaffer and for his home, right? And so now it's like the son that says, "No, I'm not going to go." But Galadriel talks to him, hey, listen, this quest is dependent on you, and you can, by fleeing the quest, you can cause the very things that you're afraid are going to happen. And he says, okay, and he regrets it, and we'll go. Okay? I'm wondering if Boromir, and this is just off the top of my head right now, may be a little bit more of the I will go, and then doesn't.
Well, that'll be a discussion for later in his story arc. I completely agree with the point about Sam.
Yeah.
And it's important to note that he wasn't just kind of like, I feel Merry and Pippin are going for Frodo, but they're more wide-eyed than Sam. Sam is like, I 100% know that this won't be easy, and I know that I don't know what to expect, but I'm going to go for Frodo. And then he sees what the consequences could be, and for a moment he is blown away because he hasn't seen yet. He
didn't even think of that.
But he's not just like, oh yeah, a little adventure, blah blah. No, he's like, I am going for Frodo.
He didn't consider that the bad guys would ever even know about the Shire.
Yeah.
There's nothing to worry about.
It's a blind side for him.
Yes. And then he says, and he goes, no, yeah, I want to go home, but I have to go by way of Frodo. And then that's why at the end of the chapter, I love it when she says, we have made our choice. We, all three of us. We will not speak of it more. Huh. Okay, fantastic stuff. I think that was a fantastic discussion. A lot of stuff. But we got to put it out there to the listeners. Which part of this chapter stood out to you? And we threw a lot of ideas and a lot of questions and challenges to you folks. So contact us. We'll give you all the ways to contact us here in just a few minutes. But first up, Micah.
What on earth are these?
Replies to the party invitations.
Yes.
Good gracious.
Good gracious. I forgot to do this one last time, I think. This one's pretty old. This was sent in February, but this is from Ron.
Sorry.
Yeah, Ron of the South Farthing. He'll be happy to hear this. He's on his way back from England, Micah.
I am jealous.
Yes, and he told me beforehand that he was going to go to the Eagle and Child and visit the Rabbit Room there at Oxford. I hope he was able to do that. Told him to send me pictures. I haven't seen any yet. But, okay, my old eyeballs. I'm actually reading this from the email. I didn't put this in the show notes because it's so long and beefy, and there's attachments and all kinds of things in there. So, dear friends at GCT Network and the Secret Fire podcast, I am remiss in my replies to your excellent podcasts. You have given me much insight into Tolkien's world that I had glossed over before. What a treasure your podcast is. I know you feel rushed to move the story along, but I, for one, am delighted by the way you bring his works to life and point your listeners and viewers to the deeper things which our beloved professor has left for us to find. So we will put that in this column. Yay, go slow. I'm sure he doesn't think going slow, it doesn't equate that to like long periods of time between shows.
Yeah, no, that's not even a part of it. That's just...
Okay. I find it is best to listen through each episode 3 times to get the most out of it. Wow. That's bravery.
One way to
That's bravery.
Wait for the next one.
I can't listen to it once. Listening once is just not sufficient to appreciate all your commentaries. In regards to the fall of Gandalf and, spoilers, his resurrection, we do indeed get a good allegory to the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ, where the Balrog, whether his wings, with wings or without, I cannot say, in a truly devilish appearance, is defeated by Gandalf and falls, but thinks he has brought down Gandalf, Christ, with him, and thereby undermined God's plans. The following time of mourning is understandable as the fellowship, much like the disciples, fears for their own lives. During their journeys with the elves of Lothlorien, the blindfold issue comes up. Here we can make a couple of parallels to the Acts of the Apostles and also the letter to the Galatians. In his own way, Gimli is a chosen vessel to serve the fellowship, Acts 9:15, and is blind for a time until he receives sight from someone who had some misgivings about him until the Lord informed him that he could be trusted. Acts 9, 13 through 15 out of the Net, the New English Translation, one of my favorites. But Ananias replied, "Lord, I have heard from many people about this man, how much harm he has done to your saints in Jerusalem, and here he has authority from the chief priest to imprison all who call on your name." But the Lord said to him, "Go, because this man is my chosen instrument to carry my name before the Gentiles and kings of the peoples of Israel." That actually ties in a little bit, tangentially, I can't say that word, to what we were discussing at the beginning of this episode. Secondly, we see Aragorn emerges as a Paul figure for the group. He sees the actual racial prejudice that runs deeply between the dwarves and the elves centuries later, but is not afraid to keep all of the disciples of the fellowship on even footing. We get a good look at what it means when one part of the body suffers, the whole body suffers. When all the members of the fellowship are blindfolded, right? Okay, yeah, we did. Yeah, in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 26 out of the Net. If one member suffers, everyone suffers with it. If a member is honored, all rejoice with it. Just like Aragorn says, you blindfold all of us. You know, no, that's not necessary. No, if you blindfold one of us, you blindfold all of us. That's the way it is. So I'm sure there's a lot better opinions on this out there, but this is what I had on my mind today. I do have a question for you folks. I find the following quote to be a positive one, but have known some people to think it was a veiled insult. What do you say? I do not know. I could do one better. Let's see here. Is it this one?
I don't know half of you half as well as I should like, and I like less than half of you half as well as you deserve.
What do you think, Micah?
Scholars are still debating the meaning behind that one.
I think it's a backhanded compliment.
It's a tough love kind of.
I think Bilbo, in fact, I think I read somebody somewhere say that he just finds himself very clever.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And so that was amusing to him.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's the best I could do. We'll throw that out for the other members of the fellowship out there. Oh, hey, Micah, Party Tree segment. Let's tell people a little bit about what we're thinking of doing here. Not thinking, we are planning on doing a new schedule.
It's coming, yeah.
Okay. New schedule for a Secret Fire podcast. Mm-hmm. Oh, and to get a little bit of background on this, make sure you watch the video, the update video, the news video that I posted on our Patreon page at patreon.com/GCTN. It's available for everybody to watch, where I just sit here in the studio and tell you what's going on with the show and with the other different projects that I am working on. So this show, it does take a bit of effort, believe it or not. And so what our plans are right now are to, instead of doing a show every week and then every other week and then every other month and then go back to every other week and then do every week and blah, blah, blah. We're talking about doing Secret Fire podcast once a month. Mm-hmm. And like today's show, this is over an hour and a half long. What do you want? We need your feedback on this in order to plan. Do you want a long show? Would you like us to try and make our way through a chapter a month?
Seems reasonable to me.
Okay, because then that can make for even a 2 or a 2.5 hour long show. One where you just split it up and listen to a little bit every day on your commute or whatever. But once a month, we'll come in the studio and do the Secret Fire podcast. But because we know that there are lots of people out there that will not be happy with that, and lots of those people out there also are interested in these ambient sounds that we're
Wonderful
always
music
playing
right now.
We always use the ambient sounds from Lord of the Rings Online. So Micah and I can do something really easy, very simply. It would take little to no preparation on our part. And what we're talking about is every other week on a Saturday night or a Sunday afternoon, we'll have to decide on a regular schedule. We are planning on doing a walkthrough, let's play, whatever you call it, for Lord of the Rings Online.
Mm-hmm.
And we have 2 different ways that we want to do it. And we will talk more about that when we implement that. But we will do it on our Twitch channel and then also upload it to our YouTube channel so that you can watch it. You don't have to be here live if you don't want to. If you don't want to participate in the chat room and things like that, you can watch it on YouTube. And we will stream in all its glory and start from the very beginning of the game.
Yeah, and obviously we'll talk more about it when we get started on it, but I just want to put out that what I at least want this to target, the audience I want it to target, is the people who are currently listening.
Yes.
Not people, you may think, okay, it's streaming a game, it's going to be them,
Gamers.
Yeah, gamers.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be that. I want it to be, here's another portion of this wonderful world that we love. We'll follow this story and, discuss
tie in
of
the lore. Yes.
Yeah, I want it to be, a lore show.
Yeah, not a gaming show.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm excited about that, Micah.
Me too.
And we'll probably begin that either, when listeners are hearing this, I don't know when I'll release a podcast, Monday or Tuesday or so. So either this weekend or the next weekend, we'll start that up. Probably this weekend. Anyway, so that's what's going on there. Secret Fire podcast once a month. And it can, if you want us to make it long, if you want us to make our way through a chapter, or if you want like us splitting them up like we do, just let us know.
Yeah, do
that.
that.
You have a month, to let us know before the next episode. And then every other week, we will stream live from Lord of the Rings Online. And they did that update 24, Micah.
Vales of Anduin,
Yes, I had to. They did away. I play on a Mac. They did away with the native Mac client, and I had to download a Wine installation of it, so it's emulating Windows. And I was reading a lot of things on the forums and stuff, and I was scared. I was actually thinking I'm not going to be able to play Lotro anymore.
Mm-hmm. Unless I get a new computer, I'm not going to be able to.
Well, and then I installed it. And it seems to work perfectly fine.
Oh, good. Good.
So anyway, that's about it. Anything else?
I think we're good.
We got to get a move on and all that good stuff. Okay, well, next month, Book 2, Chapter 8, Farewell to Lorien. We're going to leave Lothlorien, this fantastic place. But we learned a lot of things, and it was a very important place to be, and the things that were discussed and learned. Hey, the Secret Fire podcast is live in the GCT Network studio whenever we are actually live, once a month, probably on a Saturday or a Sunday,
Friday.
Or a Friday. But we'll send out notifications when we're broadcasting on our Twitch page at twitch.tv/secretfirepodcast.
And the best way to get notified when we're actually live in the studio is via Twitter at SecretFireCast. And you can join us on the Arkenstone server in Lord of the Rings Online at lotro.com.
Now, we may be switching servers for our new streaming one, and I'm thinking...
Right. Do I want to say the thing, or are we going to wait?
We'll wait.
Okay.
All right. You can send us email at secretfire@gmail... No, not... Oh, gosh. Where's my rewind button? secretfire@gctnetwork.com, or call our Hobbit hotline at 507-407-GCTN. That's 507-407-GCTN. Or if that doesn't work, call our backup hotline in Crick Hollow, where Fatty Bulger is standing by.
Potatoes.
No, Fatty Bulger is standing
That's
by.
not Fatty.
Potatoes.
Who is this?
I don't know.
Hello.
Hi, Fatty. Sam was picking up the phone before you got
better
to
get him away from there.
507-407-4286. Secret Fire Podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts. We should be in Spotify now. I haven't verified that. We're on Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, or your very favorite podcast app, like I use Downcast, and it's there. Our theme song, Hobbit's Dance, is from the album Memories of Middle-earth by Brobdingnagian and Bards. You can find out more about them and buy all their great music on their website at thebards.net. If you like the Secret Fire Podcast, please share it with your friends and review the show in iTunes. But if you love the Secret Fire Podcast, please become a patron and sustaining member of the fellowship on our Patreon page at patreon.com/GCTN. And until next time...
This is the end.
Oh, I regret to tell you.
I'm going away.
Gosh.
I'm leaving. Now.
I think everyone's confused.
Goodbye.
Goodbye! It was tied to... Narya.
Hey, there's a good one.
All right.
Not very heavy, though.
All righty. If anybody's watching, thanks for watching. And we will see you in a month of Sundays.